What is the definition of sex?
The reproduction of female and male.
Two people touching each other's sexual organs.
Sex is when the boy's penis and the girl's vagina meets.
I learned that it's when you put a penis in a vagina.
Intercourse between people.
A man and a woman make love.
What did you learn?
Like puberty and like how to put in a tampon.
I learned about HIV, AIDS, and diseases that can be transmitted through sex.
What methods of protection you can use.
Growing up, I was definitely taught that sex is just between a man and a woman, and that like if two people that aren't a man and a woman have sex, it's wrong.
Now all I remember is that like sex causes HIV, so don't have sex. That's all I remember.
I didn't have a really great health education. I didn't have a health education at all because we were taught abstinence. And they really didn't talk about mental health or social health or things like that.
When I was in high school, I didn't learn about LGBTQ relationships. I didn't learn about pleasure. I didn't learn that much about contraceptions outside of what is a heteronormative relationship.
So I think the importance of sex ed is more so to help folks understand what their options are, what their rights are, and so that they can use all of that information to make the best possible decision for themselves.
We have folks forming relationships without actually having always access to conversations about what is a relationship, what do you like, how do you keep yourself safe, how do you keep your body safe, how do you keep your body healthy.
And how they don't know about protection, and that many schools they don't teach it, so these teenagers are just doing it without like any protection, and then obviously consequences come from that.
It was only like 5th grade when I was getting it. Pretty minimal and pretty like kind of pathetic that it was just like about how to not get HIV.
I know from like my middle school, I really didn't get any education about that. And in my high school in 9th grade, I only got some things about it, but I feel like I should really know more about it.
So in the 1950s, sex education especially was seen as inappropriate to be taught in classroom and should be taught through the parental figure. So it wasn't taught through the educational system for a very long time, and it still isn't in many states, especially the aspect of putting on a condom or any kind of protection.
It's still not on the priority list for everyone, and also it doesn't always get the funding support that it should, right? So even when there are mandates, it doesn't mean that there is now a budget to make that happen. And even if we're talking about it and saying, this is what we need, and we don't have the budget to hire those educators or to make those classes or to just change what the graduation requirements are, right?
About their health, like not just mental and social, but especially sexual health, because they're teenagers, you know, they're curious about things and they ask a lot of questions. But if they don't have like that opportunity to talk about it at home, then that's where another place that they could teach it is at school. So I think it's also a responsibility for each school to have a really great health teacher and a health program to teach them about these things if they're not learning it at home.
And setting people up to have relationships that aren't supportive, that don't have great communication, where we're not like practicing consent every day. So it's having an impact where we see high rates of sexual violence on college campuses. We're seeing high rates of dating violence among young people, right? And all of those things don't just exist in isolation from each other. They are existing from many factors, and a lot of it is lack of access to information.
The impact of young folks not learning sex ed looks like, I hate to say it like this, but I'm just gonna say it looks like crappy sexual partners, right? Looks like young folks who are just not confident in their bodies. Looks like a lot of stress in their bodies when it comes to figuring out their sexuality. Looks like a lot of anxiety about figuring out their sexualities, about what types of, interactions they can and cannot have, what their capabilities are, what their ability is. And all in all, it just continues to keep up this moral panic, in America when people are coming into decisions about their sexuality, but also just about their bodies.